Hi book friends, welcome back to my channel. I am a Jen who reads, and in this video I'm going to talk to you about everything that I have ever read on Kindle Unlimited and whether I think that you should read it or pass. This is the second video that I have made on Kindle Unlimited. The first video I made was everything that's on my Kindle Unlimited library right now, stuff that I'm going to read in the future. Hopefully I'm going to get to this year. In that video, I explained a little bit about what KU or Kindle Unlimited is and my main purpose for subscribing to it every month. In this video, I want to talk to you about everything I've ever read on Kindle Unlimited. Some of the books that I'm going to talk about may not be offered on Kindle Unlimited anymore. And I'm also going to tell you if I think that you should take the time out to read it or maybe just skip it. Let's talk about romance. So I read a book at the very end of last year called Same Time Next Year by Tessa Bailey. It was a novella. It was really short. And it was about a marriage of convenience. There was a hockey player who was going to get deported back to his country, and he needed to get married in order to get his green card. And it just followed the two characters, himself and the woman who married him, and their journey to love. And although it was only, I think, like 120 pages, it was so cute, and I definitely gave it a 5 stars. Anything I've ever read by Tessa Bailey has been 5 stars. Probably one of my most favorite authors and book series that I've ever found on KU is Carissa Broadbent's Serpent and the Wings of Night. So far, I've only read the first book, the novella that goes in between, and then the second book. So I've read Serpents and the Wings of Night, Six Scorched Roses, and Ashes and the Star-Cursed King. Now, one of the reasons that I did subscribe to Kindle Unlimited was because I wanted to test out books, per se, to determine whether or not I wanted to shell out the bucks to have the books on my shelf. And this is a series that I have read on KU. I plan on reading all of her backlist and everything that she writes in the future. And eventually, I plan on having a whole shelf of Carissa Broadbent. Last year, I also read Divine Rivals on KU. Unfortunately, the sequel, Ruthless Vows, as of the recording of this video, is not on KU. This is another book that I absolutely loved, and so I used my Book of the Month subscription to go ahead and purchase Divine Rivals, and then they also offered Ruthless Vows, so I got a nice little matching set. I have not read Ruthless Vows yet, but I plan on doing it really soon. I am a big nerd. This is my D&D shelf right here. So anytime that I can find a rom-com that is nerdy, I just eat that up. And I found a book last year, a rom-com called Role Playing, and I just ate it up. Two introverts meet online, don't realize that they also know each other in real life. When they figure that out and then they do meet in real life, there's a lot of bumbling and a lot of turbulence to get to the end of the road. But I just love this book. I also loved that this book was about older main characters. I think they were in like their late 40s, early 50s. And I just loved that. I had never read a rom-com like that before. And it definitely made me want to search for more nerdy fandom type rom-coms. Another series that I read on Kindle Unlimited and then ended up buying for my shelves was the Crave series by Tracy Wolff. I am still waiting for the last book to come out on Kindle Unlimited, and I still need the last 2 books for my shelves. But I love this book. Definitely one that you should not skip. It is a little cheesy. When you first start reading it, you're going to think that it's a Twilight ripoff, but then there is some dialogue in there that makes you understand that the author did that on purpose. The characters actually make fun of themselves and say, hey, it's almost like we're in a Twilight ripoff. So it does start out a little cheesy. As the series progresses, it does get better, and I cannot wait to read the next one. The last one, as of right now, is not on Kindle Unlimited yet, but I don't see why it wouldn't be in the future. With the cozy fantasy explosion of the last couple of years, Of course, I got sucked into it. And on Kindle Unlimited, I read Becky Chambers' Psalm for the Wild-Built, and then its sequel, A Prayer for the Crown-Shy. Now, the first book was one of my top reads of last year. I cannot say enough about this book. I encourage everybody to pick it up. The second book was not as good. It was still okay, but it wasn't my favorite book. But it did make me want to, one, buy the series for my shelf, which I haven't done yet, and two, read more by Becky Chambers. So I do have another book by Becky Chambers all loaded up in my Kindle library, ready to read this year. Ali Hazelwood is another one of my favorite rom-com authors. She writes a lot of STEM romance. A lot of her characters are scientists or researchers, and she recently wrote 4 novellas, and they are together in one book bundle on KU called Loathe to You. I read all 4 of those, and I can't even choose my favorite. I absolutely loved all 4 of them. I read a graphic novel on KU. I think only the first 5 volumes of it are released currently on KU, and that is the graphic novel Saga. I loved it so much that I wanted it on my shelf, so I did go out and buy the compendium of it. I have not read it yet. I haven't read any further than I read on KU, but I plan on it. So I highly recommend that you check out Saga, the graphic novel on KU. Let's talk about some things that I did not love. So the first one that I picked up that I did not love was The Perfect Marriage by Geneva Rose. This is a thriller. I don't read too many thrillers because it takes a lot to surprise me. And this was no exception. This was just very middle of the road. If you are looking for a quick book, like a palate cleanser, something that doesn't take a lot of thought to read, then this might be a good book for you. But in my opinion, I would say skip it. Romance that I would also say to skip is the Bromance Book Club. I did read the first book in this series and it was cute. But it wasn't anything spectacular. This is basically about a group of men who read romance novels and then use these techniques on their wives. The first book in the series was a man whose wife was threatening to divorce him. And so he read all of these romance novels and used the techniques and stuff to try to get his wife back. It wasn't horrible. It was cute, but I would say skip it. It's definitely not my favorite thing that I've read on KU. It's definitely not my favorite rom-com. Another book I read, it's a series, a very popular series, and I only read the first book before I decided to DNF the series, and that is Twisted Love. This is not a rom-com. It is I don't know, maybe it would be considered a dark romance. Older brother's best friend type of romance. I have heard that the series gets better as you go along. The second book is Princess Bodyguard romance, but I decided that since I didn't love it, I was going to just skip the rest of the series. I accidentally picked up, I must have clicked on the wrong book and then I started to read it and it got me sucked in. So I was like, all right, I've seen this around and I'll go ahead and see what the hype is. And that is If He Had Been With Me. This is the story of 2 best friends as they grow up, a boy and a girl. Their parents are best friends. But as they get older, they grow apart and they start dating other people. And this is just sort of like their story and all of the regrets that they had in their relationship and in their friendship. Personally, I didn't love it. I know a lot of people do love it. I don't want to yuck anybody's yum. But in my opinion, I would say skip it. Frida McFadden is a great thriller author. I just recently read The Teacher on KU, and I highly recommend The Teacher. Yes, I did pick it up because I'm a teacher. That was like really the only reason. But it was really, really good. It was a solid 4 stars until the very end, and then I bumped it up half a star. So it did get a 4.5 star for me. But The Housemaid by Frida McFadden did not get a very good star rating from me. It was so middle of the road. There was nothing surprising about it. I saw everything coming. Then I read the summary to the sequel and I was like, it sounds like it's exactly the same thing. So I don't recommend The Housemaid or The Housemaid's Secret, but that's just me. I did read a little novella, sci-fi novella that was translated from, I think, Chinese, maybe Japanese. I'm not really sure. And that is Before the Coffee Gets Cold. This was really cute. This is about a cafe where there is one chair that you can sit in and go back in time. But there's some rules. You can only go back in time to the very spot that you're sitting in. And you have to come back to the present day before the coffee gets cold that you're drinking. There are some other rules, but it's been a little bit since I've read it. It was a really cute read. There are, I think, 4 or 5 more books, but I think after reading this first one, I know what I need to know. I don't feel like I need to continue reading it. It was really cute. I do recommend reading it. I'm just personally not going to continue on with the series. All right, so this next series I have mixed feelings about. This is not my type of normal romance reading, but I picked it up because I am a huge Disney nerd. And so I did pick up Dreamland Billionaire. And so basically there was a man who died and he owned a theme park that is sort of like Disney. Everything was very Disney. Obviously, it was inspired by Disney. Obviously, it was Disney. They just had to put a different name on it. And he has 3 grandchildren, and he says that they will inherit his fortune, but they each have to do a task for him. So this first book was my favorite in the series, and this was about the man who ran I can't remember what the name of the theme park was, but we'll say fake Disney. And he ends up falling for a girl who works there. She's like a creative engineer type of a person who works there. I ate up the first book. I did finish the series. I did read the rest of them. The other 2 books were just okay. I definitely recommend picking up the first book. The other 2 would just be depending on what you feel about the first book. The other 2 definitely did not give me the feels like the first book did, but I'm really glad that I picked up the series and tried it. I definitely didn't hate it. Last year, I read my very first lit RPG, which if you're not familiar with that genre, it's sort of like you're playing a video game in novel form, and you get to see the character go through different quests and level up. So the book that I read, my very first lit RPG, was How to Defeat a Demon King in 10 Easy Steps. It follows a girl who decides that she is going to go against the prophecy and try to defeat this demon king on her own. But she is the lowly of lowlies, and so she has to level up and do all these quests. So, for example, she finds these slimes in the forest, and they're very, very easy to defeat. So she just goes and kills millions and millions of these slimes, and very, very slowly she levels up. And every time she levels up, she notices that she has more inventory in her bag, or she has the ability to level up another skill. And it's really cute. It's definitely different than anything that I had ever read. And so I did look up more lit RPGs that I have in my library to read this year. Last one I have to talk about is probably my most disappointing disappointment on KU ever in the history. And that is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. I have heard so many good things about this. I have eaten up all the hype. I had it on my library and Kindle for such a long time, and I finally decided I was going to read it, and I was so disappointed. I was bored. I thought it was slow. I thought that it did not need to be as long as it was. I really liked the plot. I really liked the idea of the story. I just didn't like the execution. However, I'm not letting that deter me. I do still have some V.E. Schwab on my shelf that I'm going to give a try. So hopefully this was just a bad first impression. Thank you for sitting through this. I hope that I have inspired you to pick up a book or 2 and give it a read. I would love to know if you've read any of these books and what your thoughts are. Until next time, happy reading.